Hello and welcome. Today I'm really excited because each and every week you as parents and student athletes, we talk about all the rule changes coming to college, and I always get asked, what can we do as high school parents and athletes to truly prepare for this changing, constantly evolving world of college athletics? Well, you often hear me talk about postgraduate or boarding school or prep schools, and today we are going to talk to arguably the top boarding school in the country, if not the world of the NEPSAC and Phillips Andover. And I am happy to introduce you as parents to Ben Reinisch, the head coach, former alum, class of 2015 at Phillips Andover, now the head baseball coach at Phillips Andover. Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You know, I want to start with, before we go down the pathway with regard to athletics, talk about your experience as a student, as a postgraduate student. How did that help you prepare? You ultimately went on to attend Trinity, which is a really great NESCAT school, Division III NCAA. How does your experience as an alum help you become a coach or a better coach at Andover?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think my experience in becoming a PG is, excuse me, probably not too dissimilar from the experience that a lot of, prospective student athletes have now, which is, for one reason or another, they just need a little more time, right? So whether that's academically, whether that's athletically, whether it's socially, and all the different things that go into putting those things together, just in the current space that college baseball occupies, oftentimes young, guys who are specifically in baseball or whatever sport, they need a little more time. In my experience, I essentially started at zero. I was a late bloomer. I was 5'2", 102 pounds as a freshman in high school, which a lot of my guys in our program right now would be towering over the top of me. So I was just a late bloomer physically. Luckily for the way that I was brought up and raised, academics is always the priority. So, I had a little bit of standing power from an academic standpoint, but physically I just needed more time. Luckily I got an opportunity to get educated about the prep route. I believe it was midway through my senior year of high school where I had started to kind of round out physically. And, listen, I'm not a crazy stud of an athlete by any means, right? I was a 7-flat runner. I'm 5'10". I was 170 pounds in high school. So, I wasn't a world beater by any means, but, I just needed a little more time. So, what I was fortunate enough to be able to get from an education standpoint about the value of a place like Phillips Academy Andover, about the value of not just, what extra time could provide from an opportunity standpoint, but all the other things that make that experience valuable, right? So a lot of the things that I talk to prospective families about, prospective players, other coaches about is all the other things that go into that extra time that you are given with this opportunity that makes it that value, right? So for us, our institution, is a historic, to the point that you made, historic institution founded in 1778. Our student body is around 1,200 right now. 80%-ish of that is boarding. Our student body comes from 50 countries around the world and 40 plus states. And it's extremely selective from an academic standpoint. So those couple bullet points right there, give a pretty good context of not just the type of space that we occupy, but the type of people and the type of peers that specifically our guys are able to be exposed to on a day-to-day. That just in and of itself, from a value prop standpoint, you're going to come out of our experience, as a hypothetical PG or any year of school, as an improved version of yourself, right? You're going to have a lot of different perspectives. You're going to have a lot of difficult conversations. You're going to be tasked with different time management things, and everything is going to be elevated in your experience at our institution. So, it's an extremely unique place. How did it, materialize for me? First of all, I loved it in my experience, right? So I was fortunate enough to have, from a public high school kid in upstate New York, to go to a place like Phillips Academy Andover. I was just exposed to things that I would never have been exposed to had I not had that opportunity, right? Friends that I still have now, colleagues that I work with now that were teachers or advisors back then, different perspectives and demographic, experiences that I would have never had where I was from. Couple that with the academic rigor that I was exposed to, which really got me prepared for not just college, but life after now, which, I'm 7 years out of college, and I feel like, my experience at Andover really put me in the position to be productive. And also the athletic piece, right? I mean, we play, which I know we'll touch on a little bit, at a level that most of our guys in our program and the other schools in our league and the NEPSAC in general, a very high proportion of our student athletes in baseball will end up playing outside of their career in high school, right? Whether it's professionally, which that's becoming a thing, as silly as it sounds for those who may not understand New England baseball. I mean, there are guys who come through our programs that get paid to play the game at one time or another, not to mention the collegiate piece. So everything just takes a step up, which, the impact of that for a student athlete's future, I think is immeasurable. So it's a fortunate space that we're able to occupy. And, I'm grateful to be in the seat that I'm in now.
One of the things I would love for you to explain to parents is so many people think, oh, it's a post-grad year, and I don't want to go down that road just yet, but I would love for you to explain lots of students from all over, not only domestically, but internationally, will spend 4 full years, in some cases 3 years, at Phillips Andover. And how does that occur? Like, walk me through, when do most families become aware, and when do they begin to apply? And what's the experience like as far as from application to acceptance or not being accepted? What does that process look like for a prospective family?
Yeah, so I mean, everybody's different. That's kind of a cookie cutter answer, but it's really the truth, right? So because of the nature of our institution, more broadly, take the baseball part out of it, just the school itself, we are truly pulling from an international pool of students. That's irregardless of their year, that's irregardless of where they come from. I mean, we're pulling from a big population of students who are interested in our institution because of all the things I just alluded to. The process of applying is relatively similar probably to the process of any other, prep school or any college, really. I mean, there's going to be some level of standardized test, again, trying to give generalized bullet points, whether you're an incoming 9th grader or a PG. There's a standardized test requirement, for the younger kids versus the older. It's a little bit different, but a standardized test, a transcript and an academic acuity, basically. I mean, if you are potentially interested in a place like Phillips Academy Andover, you have to do pretty well in school, right? So that has to be a box that's checked. There can't be a whole lot of C's on your report card, if any, and there really can't be any B's in your report card, right? And that's whether you're an incoming freshman or a PG. So the academic piece has to be there. For us on the athletic side, we kind of take care of that in a way that we're able to support applicants. But the process is at Andover, which I think is very unique, is multifaceted. So there is obviously the academic box that has to get checked. There's an interview process, which we take extremely seriously in terms of rounding out the holistic experience of an applicant. We are extremely selective from an academic standpoint, but we're probably even more selective from a people standpoint. The motto of the school is non-civi, meaning not for self. So that aspect of servant leadership, being a part of community, having a bit of a white belt mentality where you're asking questions and really having a growth mindset throughout your experience, that is really important for a place like Phillips Academy Andover. So kind of selecting for that through an interview process is really big for our admissions people. There's a written portion, there's an essay, there's a tour, right? So we want to get people on campus to make sure we're a fit for them. I think what our admissions team and, what we try to focus on as coaches as well during our process is we don't just want, the type of students that we want, right? So from a standpoint of do they check all of our boxes admissibility wise, we want people who are excited about Andover, right? It goes a really long way for getting a level of really being excited about being here, which is really important to us, right? I mean, the spirit of being a Phillips Academy Andover student and alum is certainly a thing. So those are kind of the steps that go in. Forgive me if there was another part of the question that I missed, but that's kind of the answer that I would give on that.
And a lot of parents, I think, when I start to talk about the boarding school, the postgraduate, they'll say, well, I don't know if you understand, Walter, but, here in California or here in Texas or Florida or Georgia, we play 6A baseball. It's like really good baseball. And then I'll say, well, have you ever heard of Thomas White? I mean, you try to get parents to understand. Would you say to the parent that comes in from, a bigger athletic area or part of the country or part of the world that not only baseball, but really all athletics with regard to whether it's the NEPSAC, the Founders League, the ISL, they're kind of an intermediate between high school and college, meaning the vast majority of athletes are tracking at the varsity level to play at college, whether it's hockey or basketball. But talk a little bit about the caliber of student athletes that are playing not only at Andover, but against schools that you're participating in with regard to like Deerfield or Exeter or Salisbury or what have you. Just talk about the level of athletics that Andover participates in.
Yeah, 100%. It's elite. I don't know if I have a better one-word answer to answer that question other than it's elite. I mean, you name drop one of our guys, Thomas White, who graduated a couple years ago. He's currently the #1 prospect in the Marlins organization. I don't expect him to be a whole lot longer before he breaks in for his MLB debut. I mean, he's a special kid. We've had a couple others go through the process and are currently in affiliated ball between Jack Penny, Jonathan Santucci, multiple other guys who have gone through and played affiliated ball. So you're talking about just in the last 5 years of graduates at our program specifically, players who are getting paid to play their sport. I mean, that in and of itself is a unique piece of the puzzle for us. Now you open that up to our league, the Central New England Prep League, which consists of us, Worcester Academy, Deerfield, Dexter, Cushing, and Phillips Exeter. And it's a very similar situation at every other school, right? I mean, baseball specifically is what I can speak to most accurately being a part of it. And every team in our league has multiple, not just collegiate players in every single class, Division I players who will not only go to a Division I school, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a second, but will compete and play and have an impact in that program. And again, potentially be someone who ends up getting paid to play the game. So, I mean, the level is elite. The coaching is elite. Every coach at every program in the NEPSAC is extremely well-versed in not just the game, but in terms of building culture, building player development systems that get players in at point A and have them leave at point B. And I actually remember the second part of your previous question, which is talking about what can potentially make sense for a student athlete and a family trying to figure out timing. The reason that I segue to that is because we interact with it all the time, right? Does it make more sense for my son or daughter or whoever it is that's going to be a prospective student athlete to come in as a repeat 10th grader, to come in as a 9th grader, or to, for lack of a better term, hold out as a PG? So to answer that point and just go back to it, what I would say about our institution specifically, just for education purposes, our cohort of PGs every year is about 25 student athletes broken up into every sport that we play. We, as a baseball program, get a small proportion of that, which is 1 to 2 postgraduate student athletes every year playing baseball. That's our program. Others are relatively similar in our league. And every other age group, right, for lack of a better term, every other grade that you're potentially wanting to be a part of is different. But what I can say about how we value the postgraduate year versus, a younger potential prospective student athlete is we attempt to build our program, and I'm sure other schools do as well, in a similar model that I think the collegiate model is at a place right now, where essentially we want to build our program in our school with those student athletes that will be there for a long time, right? So freshmen, sophomores, et cetera. And then fill the needs of not just our program, but our school with the older cohort of student athletes that, like I alluded to in my own experience, need a little bit more time or fill a need for the program, or, we fill a need for them, for their experience. So I always encourage families, if they have the means, if they have the interest, if it's a fit, right? Because a lot of the schools in our space, right, ourselves included, are not for everybody. I mean, that's just, right. You'll see the same thing at the college level as well. It has to be the right fit. But if it's the right fit for what you value, for what's important to you, and you believe it's something that you want to potentially invest in, I always encourage families to look into it on the earlier side than later, just because of the lack of certainty and the shrunken numbers as you get later down the process. Now, it doesn't always work out that way, but it's something that I always try to provide an education for.
You brought up an interesting date, and I try to get parents to understand this. The world that we live in, we think everything is just, just coming in to flavor today, the 5-and-5 in the NCAA and all of the ages that are now getting older with across college athletics. But when you talk about Phillips Andover, 1778, we're approaching 250 years here in the not too distant future. Talk about what that means as far as the alumni, the network. I try to get parents to understand this is a much bigger decision than any athletic or even academic transcript. This is about becoming part of something much bigger than an individual. This is a network that is global. And so I try to get parents to understand, okay, widen your lens, and through your athletic and your academic transcript, you're able to get access to such an amazing life experience as Phillips Andover. So talk a little bit about that for the parents that may not be in the greater Northeast or maybe the East Coast. Maybe they're, in Canada, or maybe they're from the West Coast. Talk a little bit about what that network really means to, from an alumni perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's borderline the most impactful aspect of what a place like Phillips Academy Andover can offer, right? I mean, if you, in a couple different ways, and I'll try not to ramble on this, but it's something I'm really passionate about, right? Being a former alum, someone who's now in the seat that I occupy, I operate every day in my current role with a extreme level of humility, an extreme level of gratitude to be a part of, irregardless of my role, right? When I was an assistant a couple years ago, I had the same feeling. It's just been heightened now in the space that I'm in now. Extreme feeling of gratitude to even just be a part of this institution in the capacity that I am. I mean, nearly 250 years of being an entity. We've also, with the baseball program specifically, we have the first high school baseball game ever played in 1864, and we have the first interscholastic game ever played between us and Exeter in 1886. So we are essentially, our baseball program is the kind of the gold standard for kind of tradition and history when it comes to baseball specifically, which that, one of our core values in our program is gratitude. And I try to tell our guys, like, listen, our uni has been around for a really long time, and it's going to be around for a very long time after myself and our players are done wearing it. So let that sink in and take advantage of that opportunity and really revel in the experience and opportunity that you have to be a part of that while you're in it. So that's huge in the way that we coach, in the way that we communicate, and how our guys act every day. Because, to the point that you made, I tell our guys that all the time. I say, listen, if you're complaining about the fact that you're playing at 40 degrees in the middle of April, or, you're walking around to class and it's snowing or it's raining and the woe is me, hey man, let's keep this in context. You're at a very special place. Now, talking about as they become alums, I think it gets even more heightened because, every player, every athlete in their sport, regardless of what the sport is, the game's going to tell them that they can't play it at some point, right? So whether it's when you're 19 years old, after a PG year, whether you're 18, when you're a senior, whether you're 40, when you play in the big leagues for 20 years, the game's going to tell you can't play anymore. Right. And for those of us that are fortunate enough to be able to stick around it in the coaching world, we still get a taste. But regardless, you're going to have to stop playing at some point. So what that next step is can be facilitated to an incredible level with the Phillips Academy Andover alumni base. I mean, to name drop a couple of alums, just that off the top of my head, I mean, we alluded to Thomas White, who he's going to be one of those that kind of lands on the latter part of the spectrum of playing. He'll probably play for a really long time. But George W. Bush, people in also, I mean, the laundry list of special alums is incredible. But, for lack of a better term, there are still incredible people in all walks of life, all spaces in the country, around the world, all industries. I mean, the ability to engage with our alumni network in different events and different networking opportunities for jobs outside of college or outside of athletics. It's a cohort that runs incredibly deep, that is extremely passionate and proud to be a part of that cohort. I mean, speaking as an alum myself, one of the biggest, points of pride in my life is being an alum of this institution. And I know a lot of alums feel the same way. So just being able to be a part of that network, being able to pull from it, being able to access it and touch it and speak to it and get some professional development and growth from it. You could argue it's probably the biggest value prop of being a student at Phillips Academy Andover. So like I said, we really lean into it a lot, force our guys to be grateful every day. We put in practices and gratitude practices every day with, whether they're a boarder or they're a day student. If their mother makes them dinner, make sure you tell her thank you, call her at night and tell her thank you for everything. Tell your teachers when you walk out of class every day, thank you for giving me the opportunity to sit in your class every day. It's something we're really big on. And like I said, I think it's an incredibly important part of what makes us unique is just our history and our alum base. It's special. It's special.
Talk a little bit about, there is aid, there is merit-based grants, there is need-based. So I try to get parents to understand, if you are a family and there is interest, don't naturally assume it's out of you. I mean, I did not have the financial wherewithal to send my son to Lawrence Academy, but he had good transcript. He was a good athlete in multiple sports, and he was able to get a package that allowed him to participate. The same holds true at most of the schools, but obviously at Andover as well.
Yeah, listen, we are at an incredible institution. And one of the things that we have really leaned into in the last 20 years or so is the ability for us to maintain a need-based financial aid package, which essentially means if you are a prospective family and you have an interest in becoming a part of our campus community, you're fortunate enough to be granted admission, you can enroll here because the financial piece is not going to be a barrier to entry, right? So for every family, that's going to be different, right? We have all across the spectrum, right? As any, institution of higher academics would, in our space, in the collegiate space, whatever the case might be, right? So you have your families that, are in different positions, but essentially what we're able to do, and this has a lot to do with the history of the institution, has a lot to do with our people in the financial aid office, has all to do with our youth from every corner, kind of aspect of our institution, whereby we want to get the best people here. And we don't want to have any barriers to making that happen. So, I think we're closing in on 20 years of need-based financial aid. It is what allowed me to be a student athlete here. It's what allows a lot of our guys to be here, a lot of our students to be here. And it's special. I mean, it's an incredible opportunity that we're able to provide. And it's great. It's great.
One of the things that a lot of parents will ask me, and I would love for you to kind of walk them through it, is when you are applying, give us like the timeline. So how does someone that may be on the West Coast, how are they going to reach out to you as a coach or admissions as a whole? When does the process start? What are some of the timelines that parents have to be aware of as far as application, financial aid, admission, all that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So our timeline is relatively simple. There's basically 3 dates that stand out. So February 15th or February 10th, basically the second week of February is our application deadline. So that is our standard application deadline. That's when we want to have applications in hand, submitted, and all of the application processes that I alluded to earlier between, your essay, your transcripts, XYZ, all those things, we want to have in by February 10th, for not having the specific date, but early February. Essentially what our admissions team will then do is we have about a month prior to decision date, which is a month after our application deadline date. So during that time, our admissions team is doing the Lord's work. They are, constantly having conversations, combing through every applicant, and trying to find those that align with all the things that we're looking for from an institution standpoint. From there, when that, application deadline and admission deadline ends, there is then a window of the ability for families and prospective students to revisit campus if they were admitted and essentially get the full gamut of the experience of being a student at Phillips Academy Andover. So whereas during the application process, they may have gone through a formal tour, walking around campus, looking at the classrooms, looking at our facilities, walking the grounds, taking a look. The revisit day is an opportunity for students specifically to essentially be a student for a day. So they will be mirrored and matched up with another student of the institution to basically go through their day. They'll attend classes, they'll eat at the dining hall, they'll walk around campus again, they'll get to meet other students at the school. And all during that time, parents are going around to different seminars, asking different questions, hearing from different speakers at the institution. The goal being, we wanted you here because of this. Now we want to give you all of the information so that you can make the most informed decision that makes the most sense for your son or daughter and your family. It's an incredible opportunity that we're able to provide, specifically when it comes to our prospective baseball guys. We'll match them up with a baseball guy. We'll get them to a campus or a practice or game, whatever it is that we have on that given day. I'll make sure that I connect with parents during that time. So if they are a prospective student athlete, they are able to meet and understand and interact with the program that they might be a part of as well, which I think that's invaluable, right? One of the things that we're biggest on at our institution is that if you're a student athlete, athletics is a part of it. It's not the whole part of it, but it's a part of it. And this, ability that we have to get in front of these student athletes really gives us a sense of here's what it would look like if you were to be a part of it, right? So it's a pretty simple timeline. Now, there are some gray areas to it. So for those, which this happens every year, and I'm sure it will continue to happen, whether it's because of lack of education, there's an injury, talking about the student athlete side of it now. There's always some gray area with family timelines, right? We like to stick to those, kind of prescribed timelines, but that doesn't always align for every family, right? And so there are some abilities that we have depending on, where a family is coming from, where a student is coming from, to be able to make some different things work. Again, we are very focused on, not just from a baseball program standpoint, but from the school standpoint of, having people that are the best people, the best families, the best student to be a part of our institution. So, we are fortunate to be able to have some processes that we can make it work, but the constant, the consistent is those 3 dates that I alluded to, and that's what we stick by. It's a pretty straightforward process. It's an involved process, but it's one that a lot of families are able to get through and leave and end and really understand what's available to them and what the opportunity consists of, which I think is the biggest thing.
I would be remiss if I didn't end on this question, because I get it all the time. And I don't want this to be an athletic-centric question. A lot of times when I'm speaking with parents that are very unfamiliar, particularly with the postgraduate terminology or rationale, they will always say to me, well, what kind of amenities do they have? My student athlete really has a big strength program or this. Can you explain over and above, whether it's academics, accommodations from a cafeteria perspective, library perspective, athletic facilities and amenities perspective, what is Andover like if we compared it to college? What did you say? It's comparable? It's a step above a conventional high school? How would you explain to parents about your facilities and amenities at Andover as a student athlete?
I would say they're elite. Again, only word that comes to mind right from the jump, and I'll kind of expand upon what I mean by that. So specifically when it comes to facilities, our campus, our institution, just the bones that make up Phillips Academy Andover, was founded in 1778, and you can feel that when you walk around. I mean, you walk around and the history and the tradition just hits you right in the face because of the way that the buildings work together. It's a cohesive campus. There's a certain feel to it that I think is extremely unique. I mean, speaking from my personal experience, when I was going through my process of deciding on whether I'm going to go to college or whether I'm going to go to Andover, I left and Andover was my favorite visit that I took because of the feel of the campus. And I'm not just saying that because I'm now an alum and head baseball coach. That's the honest, transparent truth of my experience. And I think a lot of our student athletes, again, regardless of their timing, have a very similar experience, right? For us, when you walk around campus, we're fortunate and we're, extremely grateful to have a place where when you walk around it, it's like, wow, this place is a special place. So the campus feel in and of itself is a special aspect. So now when you get to the athletics part of it, you take the tradition of the campus and you push it forward into a level of facility that I think rivals a lot of collegiate programs in New England, or not collegiate programs in New England, but collegiate colleges in New England, that rivals any collegiate facility that you're going to walk into. I mean, the fact that we're in New England and our guys can hit year round, they can get into a massive state-of-the-art field house that's less than 10 years old. They can get into our hitting lab and get some metrics on their move. They can get out onto our facility, on our grass, on our turf, and take advantage of all the things available to them. I think takes us from, for those that are in the high school space, takes us from kind of a standard high school environment and elevates it to the point that we're essentially a smaller college with what's available to our guys. I mean, if they are so inclined, which again, a lot of our baseball guys are, to get work in at any point of the year, at any time essentially of the day, they can do it regardless of what they want to do, whether it's they want to play catch, they want to get off the machine and do some receiving, they want to get ground balls, they want to take some swings. There's a place for them to do that, and it's extremely nice. I mean, our Snyder Center, our athletic facility is got to be one of the tops in New England, whether you take it on the prep school side or the collegiate side. It goes right out into our turf. It's in the left center field space of our baseball diamond, and all of the athletic buildings are right there with our athletic trainers all there, our weight room all there. So you have everything that you need if you are trying to develop as an athlete. There is everything at your fingertips, all in the same place. I think if you were to kind of compare our space and our facility to, any other, school in our space, I think we're a special place. Again, I think it's that mix that a lot of student athletes want to have in our kind of higher academic space, where I want to be in a place where I can feel the tradition. I walk around and I'm humbled, but I also want to work out in a place that is nice, right? We're not in the business, fortunately enough, we're not in the business of, being in an old banged up gym floor and having to grit it out and say, hey, listen, you're going to take 100 ground balls off the gym floor. And if you don't, you're not going to get better. We are very fortunate to have an incredible athletic department. Our director of athletics, Lisa Yole, and her staff and our institution have done a great job of, putting everything together and expanding upon what's been done. And there's, plenty more things in the pipeline for us to take our athletic department and push it forward. So everything is available to student athletes. The food's incredible. The dorms are great. If you're looking for a incredible experience, as a potential prep route, again, I'm probably a little bit biased, but I think we are the best in the business. I think everything that we're able to provide for a student athlete experience, what they get out of it, what they're able to become as a part of it, I think is special. And again, like I alluded to, our guys are reminded about it every day. I'm constantly telling them, be where your feet are, be grateful for the opportunity to be here, look around at what you're a part of and really sink it in. It's a special place. So I'm grateful to be a part of it as I am now and hope to be here for a long time.
Well, first of all, congratulations on becoming the head coach this past season. I wish you nothing but the best. I want to let parents know I will have all of Phillips Andover's contact information. I will have Ben's email address if you're so inclined to reach out directly to Coach. I want to stress to parents, we are going to be having, and with Ben's help, with Andover's help, we're going to be having a lot more content focused in and around the boarding school, the prep school, the postgraduate experience, because now it is becoming an integral part to the gateway to the college experience. In a school that's been around for almost 250 years, I think it's important for parents to really take your time and to learn as much as you can about the experience as a whole, and that the baseball is just a part of that experience. So Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and share so much about Phillips Andover.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it. And I would just add really quickly to any parents or student athletes that are interested, our institution and myself and our staff, we're an open book. I mean, we're excited about our place. We're happy to provide an education, to get on the phone, to get on a text, to get on an email. So, I appreciate the allusion to putting up our information. We're happy to connect with anybody at any time. And don't hesitate to reach out to us because we love Big Blue and we want people who love Big Blue as well. So thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben.